The great American speaker that I chose for my presentation is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His famous words are, "I have a dream." He used them to change our country and is regarded as one of the most influential, effective, great speakers of America. In my presentation, I'll be going over Dr. King's background, his use of rhetoric in "I Have a Dream" speech, and how his words were so effective. Also, why he is known to be a great American speaker. His background is that he was born on January 15th, 1929. His birth name is actually Michael King Jr. He completed his PhD by the time he was 25 and married Coretta Scott in 1953. He had 4 children and began his work with the Civil Rights Movement by becoming the president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which helps in promoting civil rights and promotes peaceful protests. He began giving lectures around the country on civil rights and admired the teachings of Gandhi, specifically the belief in nonviolence, according to biography.com. When it comes to context versus delivery, which is more important, Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech, his delivery is just as important as his content of his speech. He would not be able to just speak and have an audience listen to him if it weren't for his powerful delivery. In order to have effective speech, delivery is half of the battle. Dr. King shows that he knew the power of delivery by speaking in sentences with a similar melody. He begins his speech and builds throughout his speech, making the crowd hang on to each word he says. Looking at his specific speech, "I Have a Dream," it was given during the March on Washington in 1963. During his speech, Dr. King's tone fluctuates from a calm demeanor to a more assertive, forceful tone. Throughout his speech, he repeats his main points over and over again. For example, when he says, "The Negro is still not free 100 years later." He repeats this statement multiple times throughout his speech, and it adds importance to the words, according to Andrew Dolgan's article on speech analysis. By repeating, you are showing that you want the audience to remember a specific point. When he says, "I have a dream," he goes on to saying what is the favored outcomes he'd like to see in his country. When he speaks about what he dreams, he is showing the contrast between where the country was at the time of the speech and what his hopes were for the country in the future. Throughout his speech, he builds more and more with power to where he gets to the end and firmly is telling the audience about his dream today. Dr. King uses passages from the Bible to add to his credibility. Not only is he a persuasive speaker, but he is also an informative speaker. He speaks on the facts of the state of the country back in the 60s. He shows power by flawless flow of words, and he is successful in his speech, as you can hear the crowd in the background cheering and agreeing with his statements. Dr. King also uses words to make himself relatable to his audience. On the American Rhetoric webpage of Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech, he refers to himself as "we." He uses phrases like, "I must say to my people." He is very direct in what he's trying to get across to his audience, which is unity. He uses the tool of pausing throughout his speech in order to hold an audience's attention. The slight pauses make the listener cling to each sentence, and he ends with "free at last, free at last," another repetitive statement that impacts the words to show even more importance. He draws out his words like "one day," which makes him seem more captivating to his audience. Due to the effectiveness of his speech, shortly after Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech, Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, allowing equal rights to all persons regardless of color or race. On the next slide, you can see Dr. King giving his "I Have a Dream" speech, and the question is, why is Dr. King referred to as a great American speaker? He's considered one of the greatest American speakers in history because he gave controversial speeches during a time of great divide in the country. He was a minority in the country, speaking out about the injustice of inequality of Black Americans. Through his effective rhetoric, he was able to fuel the notion for the Civil Rights Act, making segregation amongst blacks and whites illegal. Just by speaking, Dr. King was able to make a difference in the country, and even more importantly, he believed in peaceful protesting. Dr. King was a man before his time and saw the wrong of segregation, where we now live in a country where the thought of it is bewildering. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. Right. In conclusion, Dr. King had a dream, and his dream changed history. He was assassinated when he was only 39 years old, but is still remembered today on the third Monday of every January on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And his memorial is in Washington, D.C. for his work on the civil rights movement. Through effective communication, Dr. King was able to unite a divided country.